Amazing. Fantastic. All right.
Cool, man. Well, thanks, Ben, for doing this with us. Where are you at, actually? What part of the country are you in?
I'm in LA right now. It's a little wild here because the governor just locked down the state. So
yeah,
I'm at my girlfriend's parents' house. It's a little crazy in here right now because
oh my gosh,
where my girlfriend, her brother, her mom, her dad, everyone's working from the house, and it's kind of a wild, bizarre.
Yeah.
This is not normal circumstances.
Sure. Yeah, we're in San Diego, just south of where you are, so we're on lockdown also.
Right. How are you guys holding up?
Pretty good, man. We have 2 kids. So one's birthday is today, just turned 12, and the other turns 4 next month. So it's hard keeping 2 boys with energy, tamed in this house.
I'm sure, man. I can't.
But yeah, dude. So you're in LA. Are you originally from LA?
No, I'm from New York originally. I made the move out here, I want to say like 2015 or 16. It's kind of blurred together because it's been a while.
Okay, yeah.
I used to be in a band, and that's why I came out here.
Okay, we'll talk about that for sure.
And then I left the band, maybe a year and a half ago when I decided to go solo and, made this album. And
yeah. Right on. So you grew up in New York. What were you like in New York City? What part of New York are you in?
No, I was from Long Island.
Long Island, okay.
And it was like a pretty towny town. I'm not sure if that makes sense to you. Like, you go to the store and the person who owns the store.
Oh, sure, like small towny.
The owner of the sandwich shop, like, I play baseball with his son. People don't leave the town; they like being in the town.
Sure.
So it was definitely like a little bit of a small town kind of vibe. There was no art really.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think like everyone's parents were like, an insurance adjuster, a teacher.
Sure.
Something like I didn't, I live in LA and I, know a lot of people who are from here.
Right.
Like, yeah, my dad's a producer or my dad's a writer. There was none of that. So for a long time, like I played music a lot growing up, but there was never like a conscious thought like, oh, like I'm going to like pursue music as a profession. I was just like, I don't know anybody who has done that. So I remember thinking as like a 15-year-old, I was like, how does one become a musician? Like, it doesn't seem like you just get really lucky, or I just had no idea about what that was like. It was very weird. That was a hard path to overcome, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of why we started this podcast, actually, to hear people's stories and journeys of how they achieved. Now you're putting out records. You're in LA now. Like that's kind of what we're trying to find. So, so you grew up in Long Island. When did you start playing music?
Oh man, music has like it always been an innate thing. I've kind of played since like before I can't remember a time where I didn't play.
Oh wow! What did you start playing first?
I actually started playing drums first. So I have 3 older siblings, and my family loves music and enabled lots of music making. Although I'm not sure my siblings were any good at making it. But we had like the equipment in the house when I was growing up. So like we had a full drum set and like guitars and amps and stuff. And, my family loved rock and roll and, Bob Dylan, Springsteen, that kind of a vibe. And so that was really interesting to grow up in that environment. And my siblings, I have 3 older brothers and they're all like, 6 to 11 years older than me. So I grew up kind of ingratiated in like, early 2000s rock where like I probably may not have been, but like, I remember when Strokes' Is This It came out. That wasn't like going around my elementary school.
Sure. Yeah.
That was like not a thing. It was like, 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. But my brothers were bringing home Is This It and like Ben Queller's Sha Sha and the Modest Mouse's first record. And
that's rad.
And so I was really exposed to that kind of rock and roll as a kid. And like, I used to just like rock out on the drums. I loved it. I played drums in the school band. That was like my first instrument. I think when I was probably like 12 or 13, I switched more to guitar. I think I kind of like wanted to write songs and like make music, and it's really hard to like, you're not going to like write a song on the drums.
The drums, right. But you could put together a whole record if you know how to play drums, you know, like you could play everything.
Yeah. I mean, I did play a load of instruments on my own record. And I think a lot of that does come from like being a young kid playing lots of random things that were lying around the house. And I think like once you intuitively get music, and I just, insofar as rhythm and having good feel and knowing what not to play, you don't need, I'm not like an expert at any instrument really. I think I just know what to not play. And so, you know, I can play bass or drums or whatever. I just like not trying to be Neil Peart. I just like to sit there.
Just keep the beat.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, how come you had? Did your parents play anything, or like why was the drum kit there and the guitars? Was that just from your older siblings?
Yeah, it was my siblings were. I think my parents did not play any instruments. As far as as far as I understand, they have zero musical talent at all.
They just let you guys have it all at the house.
Yeah, I think we were interested in it, and my aunt is actually like a classical musician.
Wow.
So I think there is some like genetic family music intrigue for sure. And I think in general, like my grandmother was a painter, and one of my other aunts from a different side of the family was also like a painter of sorts. So I think there's definitely some artistic things in the family. And I think the family just enabled my siblings and I to express ourselves in that way. And I think I was the only one where it really stuck. Sure. But thankfully, my older brother, like they acquired the instruments for me. So when I came of age, they like stopped playing, but I had like, you know, a nice amp and like an acoustic guitar to play on and a drum set and like all sorts of other things.
Yeah, you had all the equipment when you were older to play it. So you picked up, you're playing those instruments. How old were you around? Like when you started really kind of delving into it? Were you in middle school, high school?
I think I remember I got for my bar mitzvah, which for the non-Jews out there is when you turn 13. I got a Martin acoustic guitar.
Oh wow!
And it was like, you know, like it was like the worst Martin, but it was still a Martin.
So but it's still a Martin, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was stoked. And so I got that when I was like 13. And I think that's when I really started to be like, oh, I'm going to like be good at guitar. Like I'm going to play. And then I like really played. Like I would come home from school and like play guitar till dinner for like years. Like basically from, like that point until like, honestly, like
still now,
you know? So, and it's so interesting because like, as I like kind of progressed, and I always like wanted to be like Jimi Hendrix when I was like, I'm going to be the next Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
I think somewhere along the lines, I kind of came to terms with the fact that I'm probably not going to be the next Jimi Hendrix. And I think at that point, I kind of made this conscious choice that like, I want to be listenable. You know, I want to, you know, play music that's enjoyable for people to listen to.
I like that.
And so I think that is kind of, I've stopped looking at myself as a guitar player and more look at myself as a songwriter. And I just use the instrument that I feel like is best suited for the song that I'm writing or playing.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. You said you were in a band. What was next? So you start learning, you get the guitar at 13. And then when do you start playing with people?
I start playing with people pretty early, jamming in my town. None of us were good. I mean, I wish there was like, you know, a sweet story where like, oh, you know, a couple of us in the town, like we formed this band, we were awesome. Like, no, I jammed. We were absolutely terrible.
Well, you said you're from Long Island. There's a lot of great bands that, I mean, at least in that late emo scene that came out of Long Island. You have like Taking Back Sunday and
they're
Brand New and Bayside and
those bands were really good, but I think they were like more in like out deep into the island. So I'm from like 30 minutes from Manhattan and like
okay. So I don't know Long Island at all or New York very well.
Yeah, why would you? It's basically like kind of like, think of Long Island like the Valley, right?
Okay.
Grew up in like Studio City.
Uh-huh.
And like where that scene was happening was in like, Oxnard. Or like
Ventura, sure.
Like
so
Ventura County, like
So
like
you're
like kind of in LA, but like they're like not really. They're like an hour and a half outside the city.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's like almost like a different, even though it's still Long Island, it's like not the same.
It's still a different part. Yeah, it's a totally different part of.
I can take the train into the city in like a very short amount of time. Like for them, it's a journey.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
But and I think actually when I formed the band that I ended up playing with and moved out to LA with, we actually did play a little bit on that Long Island scene. And I think actually it wasn't very good because the embers of that like emo thing were still happening.
Sure.
That when that happened the first time, it was like, this is like a zeitgeist. They're like hitting the paradigm of emo music.
Yeah, they were.
And then when I like kind of like discovered that scene as a player, I think people were still trying to do that, but like that moment in like culture had already passed up.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So I definitely played some of those venues in Long Island, and then we moved to LA. And really in college was the first time I started to play with like musicians I was like, whoa, okay, we're like good. And I played with a lot of jazz kids, and they, I was the front man of this band in college, and like we were easily, I was the worst member of the band. So like every other member was like, could like rip, just embarrass me. And then I was just there. I am singing my like mediocre songs.
But you have a great voice though. I mean, that's the draw, what I mean? Man, there's a lot of great players, but.
Actually, one of the guys I played with in college, his name is Rob Araujo, and he like is pretty famous on the jazz circuit, plays with Tom Misch and other cats. And it's funny because there have been times people are like, yo, have you ever heard of Rob Araujo? I was like, actually, Rob Araujo and I played music together when we were like 18 years old.
That's crazy.
So it's just kind of a weird small world.
Yeah. So you started that band when you were in college, but you were playing with kids in your town before that?
Yeah, so I kind of like played with kids in my town, didn't really form anything. When I went to college, I formed like a few different bands. And then after I graduated, actually, I formed a band with like a couple kids coincidentally from my town. And then we all moved out to LA together. And, kind of like we opened up for some major label acts and like had a nice couple of years, and we grew a lot, and it was fun. And then like that band kind of ended in 2018, for a variety of reasons that bands and
yeah. But you guys were, if you moved to LA from New York to do this, you guys must have had quite like a following and stuff, I would think, right?
Yeah. I think we definitely were like selling out some decent sized New York City venues. So more like the Mercury Lounges. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Pianos, Arlene's Grocery. Like these are like, 100 to 250 cap.
Okay. But still, that's a good draw.
Yeah. We
were in New York.
And then they had an uncle who lived in Calabasas.
Okay.
So we moved out. My bandmates were brothers, and we moved out to LA together. And we kind of like lived in this Calabasas house, that's
pretty sweet.
Very Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then we kind of just like slogged it out in LA for a while. And I think at our peak, we were able to get some support slots, and we sold out the Roxy. It was like kind of like the peak of the band. Probably.
That's cool. That's really cool.
I think it was an amazing. It definitely contributed greatly to like where I am now.
Sure.
It was fun. It was the first time I ever like really toured for real.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
That's a very, it's a strange, touring is a strange thing.
Yeah.
Also, it's something that most people, I don't know if you were a musician at some point or.
Yeah, but I was never good enough to, I'm better on the radio side of things.
Well, yeah, you never know, but this is why I asked, but I think, yeah, touring is strange. You're going from town to town, and I think in your head it's a certain thing. And then when you're actually out there sleeping on people's floors for like 2 months straight, it's like a totally different thing.
Yeah. I think people have the idea, like, if you're in a band and on tour, you're like Green Day or something, you're just getting bussed around and you're just feet are up, but that's
it's far from glamorous. It was far from glamorous, but it was definitely awesome.
Yeah.
You get to play for people and all these different towns. And I think, learned lots of lessons, but, two of the big ones that stick out were, in your mind, you're like, oh, I'm going to play like New York or LA and it's going to be wild. And it's like, the real lesson is like, no, you're going to play Davenport, Iowa, and that's going to be wild. I think there's like the premium on being a musician in a town like that is high because, a lot of, big bands are not passing through those little cities.
Right.
They're skipping over that city and they're only going to play like the biggest city in the region.
Right.
And people will just come, if Coldplay plays somewhere in the Midwest, like people from Iowa might drive to Chicago to go see,
Yeah, they're not, Coldplay isn't showing up in Iowa to play there's nowhere for them to play probably.
Yeah. So I think, that was a lesson for me. Like when you play those small towns, like those shows are awesome. People are hyped and like, it's like a totally different kind of energy. And in New York and LA, people are just there's a million bands. Like you can go see a sweet concert anytime you want, ranging from the smallest, littlest local band to like, Ariana Grande.
Sure. Yeah.
Any night. And so I think people are like less pumped when you pass through those big cities because there's so many alternatives in the market,
Yeah. It's same thing here in San Diego where you would think this band, whoever the band would be, would sell out this 7,000 cap venue and they'll be struggling to sell tickets. And you're like, how are you struggling to sell tickets? But there's so many other things going on. Like LA, I mean, there could be 5 huge artists playing the same night in various locations across LA.
Yeah. So that was a really cool thing. And I think the second thing was just taught me how to be a professional. Like you end up like singing night after night for months on end. Like you just become like kind of a machine in playing your instruments and singing. Like you start, like you get up on stage and like it becomes purely emotion rather than like, what is that chord? How do I play that? Or what's that note? How do I hit that? I think it's really hard to get that kind of flow state if you're not constantly playing shows night after night. It's just, and I don't think it's a talent thing for like, oh, this is about me being good per se. I think it's like any touring musician, it's about reps,
Yeah, it's practice.
Yeah, exactly.
The more experience you have doing it, the better you'll be.
Exactly. And in reality, like I can practice as much as I want in my bedroom and like log hours on end, but like it's just not the same as being on stage in front of people where the audience is communicating with you and you have to respond to that emotion. Sure.
Yeah, totally. With that band, did you tour from like New York? Like how big of a tour were you guys doing? So or was that once you had moved to LA, you're doing like runs at the West Coast?
We didn't really do any touring in New York. We kind of just like played crappy local venues. And then like once a month we'd play like a big New York City venue and like really promote it. Cool. And then I think when we moved out to LA, we kind of did the same at the start, but we couldn't even do those like once a month shows because we didn't know anybody in LA. And so it was really hard. And we ended up getting a residency at this crappy bar in Santa Monica called Harvell's. I won't diss it because I learned a lot there too.
Yeah, they gave you the shot.
The first day we moved to LA, we played one show there and the owner came up to us and was like, hey, like, would you want to have a residency here? And we're like, oh, cool.
Wow. Yeah. So
we played there every Monday for like 6 months. And every Monday, week after week, we'd play for 3 hours till like,
oh my gosh.
Like there was probably like 3 people in the audience. And I think again, like those lessons are important to it taught me a lot. It definitely humbles you. That's for sure.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that at some point, like my current manager, who still manages me now, she like came out and watched us play, and she was like, "I see you have potential," and she started managing us, and she was able to like put us in positions to succeed. And then the guy we opened for was this guy Barnes Courtney.
Oh, I know him.
And yeah, and so that was like our first major label tour, and like it was like, whoa, okay, we're like touring. We went from like a like small local LA band to touring all of North America and playing like 2,000 cap venues.
Wow,
like that. This is insane,
So you got to open for him on his whole tour?
Yeah, I'm like a full North American. We actually only got part of the tour, and then like halfway through, the other artists like dropped out, and we were like, "We'll do it. We don't even care." Like it was just one of those things. Like we'll say yes to anything.
Yeah.
And that was like the beginning of, things starting to happen. And then like we opened for a few other acts and did our own kind of headlining things, opened for a band called Wildorado, which are doing something nice currently. They're still together. They're a really good band, actually.
Cool. I haven't heard them. I'll check them out, but I knew Barnes Courtney.
Yeah, they're really good. And then I think things kind of came to a natural, and I think the band just were, it's just really being in a band is super challenging.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah,
a lot of personalities to manage, including my own, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's just you're in a close quarters with 2 or 3 other dudes every single day, all day long. And at some point, it just was like, ugh, like they're great guys, it's just like it's hard to spend that much time with anybody.
Right.
So, that kind of came to a natural end. And then I started to write songs for other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that was,
okay.
I just, to me, like when I identify as a songwriter more than anything.
Right. Sure.
I just kind of started dabbling in that world. And I ended up going to London to write after the band broke up, and I was there, and I ended up meeting this producer named Danton Supple.
Yes, I was going to ask you about him.
Yeah.
He produced the X and Y, right?
He
From
did.
Coldplay.
A favorite, Coldplay record of mine.
Oh yeah, epic album.
And he's produced like Morrissey stuff. Like he's like definitely a production bigwig.
Yeah, guy, sure.
Yeah, and so I mean, just to be in the same room as that, I think I had like the first session we did. I definitely had an imposter syndrome.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
felt like you shouldn't have been there, or?
Well, I just think it's a little surreal when you like walk into the room, and he also like mixed Russia Blood to the Head, so he's got all these like gold and platinum records on his walls of like records that independently I grew up
right.
And so it was just really bizarre. And then we started to work together, and it's like, well, he's obviously the best producer I've ever worked with. And so right after that, everything is just sounding a lot better than like you said.
So it definitely made quite a difference working with him over anyone else.
Yeah, I think, in the band too, I really struggled to like get the sound in my head onto the record,
the recording. Yeah,
it was always fine, but it was never like quite right for me. And then once I started working with Danton, I would like explain things to him, and he was like, I know what you mean. And I was like, wow. And then he would show me, and I'd be like, yes, this is actually it. I've been like searching to express this to someone who might understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so we did it. We wrote a song together on the record. Actually, I think it's called Lover's Blues. And then after that, he was just like, we should make a record. And I was like, yeah.
Wow. So you went out there. You just went out there to write, and then somebody introduced you to him? Like, how did that connection happen?
I think like my manager knew his manager, and like through like some, back channel maneuvers, I ended up in the room with him one day. And some other guy was supposed to be there also. And I think we were going to like write a song to pitch to somebody else. And then like coincidentally, that guy never showed up.
Wow.
Which is, quite a turn of events. I mean, surely that song wouldn't have turned out the same way. I mean, who knows what would have happened. But, it was kind of like, it was nice that we had that one-on-one connection. And I think he kind of saw that, like, there was clearly this chemistry. I'm very, like, right-brained. I'm not, like, super-duper technical. And not like, I'm not like highly detail oriented, at least from like, production, I need more frequency of this sound, or that's not my bag at all. And Danton is very much that way. He's very meticulous. And so when I'm like purely music minded, so bring him the music and I'm feeling these sounds or thinking this, he was able to like really be meticulous about pushing things along in the right way. So when he said he wanted to make a record, naturally I was pretty stoked.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that I went back home to LA, and I was just still like kind of figuring it out. And I ended up making like, this is where I learned how to use Logic, which is a like an audio software, a digital audio workstation kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And so I just made like 20 demos of songs I had written. And as I saw them in my head, I sent them to Danton, and we kind of like talked through it. And then I ended up coming back to London, like maybe like 3 months later. Wow. And stayed in London for like 2 months and made a record in like a studio called State of the Art, which actually now closed. That was the last record ever made there, sadly.
Wow.
But it's like, the Stones like made their 80s records in there. Like it's like studio. And it was like everything I had always hoped and pictured like my heroes must have been doing, huge live room with like all the instruments and everything's out there and there's a million microphones and, there was just an energy to doing that is something I'd never experienced, even though I've made, albums before and made like recordings properly. It just, the process of that, I think, was leaps and bounds on another level than what I had ever done before. And I was like, okay, this is like how you make records.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. So he helped, or he worked with you on your full length, your solo record then?
Yeah. So he produced the whole record.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, so you said you met your manager. She just happened to show up to the Santa Monica place that you were playing?
I think like we had a profile on like, I don't even think this website exists anymore, but it was called Sonic Bids.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of those like weird, like
a Sound Machine type website.
It was one of those like weird music networking. It's like LinkedIn for musicians.
Oh, okay.
And I don't even think it's relevant anymore. I don't even know, but we had a profile on there, and there was like 3 bands in LA that had a profile.
You're one of 3.
Yeah, and I think my manager, obviously, like she's, as I've come to know her, she's like extremely meticulous as well and very hardworking and like, finds things in like the strangest places.
Sure.
So she reached out to us with like this very lengthy email, like, are you managed? Like, are you signed? Like, are you published? Are you this? Are you that? And she was like, are you playing a show in LA? And we were like, yeah, well, actually we play every Monday at this show. And then she just turned up and then basically was like, no bullshit, just kind of said like, hey, listen, I'm not going to promise you anything. This is a tough business. If you work hard, I'll also work hard. If you don't, I won't. That's awesome. And I kind of respected the candor.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, she started to manage the band, and she obviously was like able to bring in like great opportunities that like made our band perform better. We got better shows and all sorts of things. And like, naturally also we developed a really good relationship as a team. And then, so when I was leaving the band, like my manager and I weren't planning. I wasn't like, I'm going to go solo, you're going to manage me.
Right.
I think it was more like, I'm going to continue in music. And it just was like a natural, she's like, okay, well, I want to still manage you.
Yeah. I want to still help you out.
And then, and then the whole Danton thing kind of happened organically. I wasn't like looking to make a record, and then Danton was like, "Hey, let's make a record."
Right.
And it happened like totally naturally. And I thought, honestly, after the band broke up, I was like, all right, like, maybe I'll just write songs for other people from now on. And like, that's my, job.
Yeah.
And then I think at some point too, I kind of started to be like, oh, well, I don't know if I could just do that. And I need, there's so many songs I write, and it's like,
and you probably want to perform in front of people too, I would think.
Yeah, there's that. And there's just like, to write a song for pitch for somebody, like there's just so many songs I'd write and I'd be like, all right, well, I think this is a really good song, but there's no way anyone would sing this except me,
Right.
Like, Beyonce's not going to be like, oh, love that song, Veins. Let me sing that. Like, I just, that's like not a pitchable type of a song, but I think it's a
great song.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think those in general, when I look at like, Bowie songs, those aren't songs that he could have just given away to another artist of the time and they would have done it justice, right? Like, I can't imagine someone else singing 5 Years or,
Sure.
Moon Age Daydream, and it's just, oh yeah, perfect, It's not a song, but it's still great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of had a lot of those moments where I felt myself writing songs that I felt were very me, but not songs that I felt others could pull off or sing.
And so you have the 12-track album is not out in full yet, right? Aren't you? So you're like releasing a song like every Friday. Is that what that's kind of what you're doing, right?
Yeah. So we had like met with like a bunch of major labels, and it's kind of like a weird time in music. I think there's not a lot of like artist discovery on the labels' behalves anymore. Whereas like I feel like back in the day, like someone would like walk into a small club and hear Jeff Buckley sing and be like, that kid's gonna be a star. And
right.
And then like invest money in him to like find his feet for 3 years as he like slowly develops. And I just don't think there's a lot of that happening.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I felt like when we were, discussing like the route we were gonna take with labels and stuff, we didn't really feel like we wanted to be beholden to like a label that might like force us to do things that were go against the art. So we decided we were going to release one song every month until the whole record was released.
That's awesome.
Like every song can kind of have its moment to like, and it's in order of the record. So it's not like random.
Oh, so you're going to release track 1 to track 2.
People say it was track 1, Veins is track 2, the next song is track 3, and so on. I think it's really important to, I made this record in hopes of achieving what my heroes achieved, and something that was like holistic and had an arc to it, and told the story the whole way through, and like the songs were placed in a particular order on purpose. It's not just a collection of 10 arbitrary songs that aren't related. Yeah. Like I threw out a lot of songs that I thought were maybe better in a vacuum, but didn't fit the record, Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
right on. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear the whole thing. Yeah, so it looks like November, it'll be out fully out for everybody to hear.
Yeah, in November will be the full record release. I'm very pumped about that. And
that's awesome.
I'm hoping once this virus settles down a bit to get back and tour quite a bit. I had a couple shows, unfortunately, I had to cancel, and I'm dying to get back out there, but it seems like I'm going to have to wait a bit until this calms down.
I was going to say, yeah, I did see that you had some shows scheduled, but then you had to reschedule. I mean, who knows how long, hopefully not very, this thing will go. But you did do that YouTube show. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, I think.
Are you going to do more of that?
Yeah, I think we're going to do one a month moving forward. I think people need the entertainment.
Oh yeah,
I
agree.
It's a weird time for everybody. Like no matter what you are, what your profession is, what you do during the day, like everybody's affected negatively pretty much.
Sure. Yeah. Everybody's home and everyone's stuck
and
here.
At the very least, everybody is home, and probably bored.
Yeah, totally.
So think I'm pretty excited about what I'm seeing from a lot of musicians I know, and just the artist community in general. Like, I feel like they're stepping up to, fill a gap for people who, would be going to live shows, but now they can't. And so I'm just trying to, contribute in some way if I can. I'm not, I'm not Coldplay, and that's fine. But if I'm doing something for anybody at all, like that's inspiring to me. That's why I make music. I want to, write songs that resonate with people. And if there's like one person in France who's digging it, then like I feel like I've done something really great. Obviously, hopefully there's, more than that. Luckily on the last live stream, it was, a nice turnout of people, and that's awesome to see. But in general, I'm just trying to, do something positive with the things that I'm doing.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Well, thank you so much, man, for chatting with us. I have one more question for you. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Yeah, so much, but I think my advice for aspiring artists is to lose any sense of entitlement you may have and work really hard. Because you'll either learn the hard way or you'll quit.
Yeah.
Like, like this, business is like the people who you look at who are really successful, like it might not seem to you like they're working hard, but like, I bet you, I don't know her, but I bet you like Beyonce and Adele and Ed Sheeran are like the hardest working people in show business.
Oh, totally.
If I had to guess.
Yeah. I would probably
and I think like there's a lot of stock. People put a lot of stock in like natural ability. And I think that's only one small piece of the puzzle. Like, if you are willing to like log the hours and just like be like, I'm going to work harder than everybody else, like that is a recipe for success in my mind. Mm-hmm. And probably will go even further than if you just had natural talent, but like were really lazy and didn't do anything.
I love that.
Just one man, I'm just taking it with a grain of salt. Just one.